past 1 o'clock. We need to get started. As we stated before, we're talking to all the departments, and today is the department. If you have questions, you guys want to come up here? Appreciate it. I think, as we talked about this morning, my biggest issue is not interviewing enough people. I believe last Thursday, you weren't interviewing anybody else.
Sorry.
Last Thursday, you said you weren't interviewing anybody else. Today, you're saying you're going to interview several people for those positions.
Yes, we had interviewed 3 people on Friday.
What positions are we talking?
We
about?
interviewed 2 on Friday.
Their EMT, their mass positions are for EMT, paramedic, and CCP.
Okay.
And that's out on Indeed. I sent you the hyperlink. now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
you
saw
sent
that
us
you had
those.
Davis County and Tuttle Regional. Places on there.
That's correct.
And then the start date's gonna be September when?
15th. That's right.
And that changed from the 18th, which we talked about this morning.
Well, I was trying to go with the pay periods.
Mhm.
And what Susan said is the pay period begins on the 18th.
It was begin on the 18th?
Yeah.
Okay, well then,
Okay.
Well, I
Yeah,
guess
they
we'll
wouldn't
do it on the
technically start
18th.
until that Monday.
So let's start on the 18th.
And I wasn't aware. I was just going by.
No, I get it.
Well,
Get
I
paid
know.
on the 15th. and the
Yeah.
30th,
Correct.
So
Right.
So, going back and the reason that I had brought up when I met with you after the department head meeting last week. And
Was it Wednesday? I thought it was Thursday. I can't remember. If it was Wednesday or Thursday.
And I told you about the 2 individuals I was looking at.
Correct.
And the reason why, and I backed that up,
And is that for EMT or paramedic?
that's for a training officer for Kathy. And the reason why is,
I don't think we need to mention names. We're on Zoom.
okay. Well, and the reason why is the affiliation with the volunteers. There's a history there of teaching stuff as well as bringing that into the fold.
Looking over the protocol book, of course.
Plus, she has worked with our medical director as a volunteer.
So I have a question,
I'm sorry.
and my question has to do with training, not with the position.
Correct.
It's in Judy's job description to be responsible for all new field staff training and
Well,
skills labs testing. So is that-
that's correct. Yes, ma'am. With the amount of preparation that needs to take place, there's preparation for the state licenses, and it's going to meetings, and it's getting people on board, interviewing. It's just a plethora of.
Now we know that what's involved.
Well, it's a lot, and I think it's more than a lot of people realize, because, please go down there and see. There's meetings and meetings and phone calls and preparation and the supplies coming in. Even though we order it and it comes in, it has to be verified.
Right.
And if it's not accounted for,
So
that,
you're inventorying them and checking them off as you come in.
well, it's
Good, and that's good standard practice
exactly.
for
But,
receiving.
a good director, even though, I have to oversee things, is the team members that we bring in. Yes, I can teach, but when do I have the time to plan for these classes, to do these things? It's easier to bring in somebody else to help out with that. to
But by the
plan
time
for
these
that.
people start, when all this upfront, most of the upfront and not when
Correct.
it'll be done, like the license is gonna be gotten, so all that stuff's gonna be done.
Correct.
So then we'll be in more of an operational mode instead of a
Yes.
preparation mode.
But this is in preparation thereof. It takes planning
Right.
They're,
I'm
they're-
all
it's
aware
not-
of what it takes.
and for me, from an operational perspective, when a budget is agreed upon, okay, and I mentioned that Marina did not charge us for June, that's $3,000. She did not charge us for July, except for the 2 clinical hours that we were at, that we sat with her on Saturday. That's $300. Okay,
Right.
so that's an additional 5,300
No, that's cool.
or I'm sorry, 2,700. So that's money in which we saved. Plus, we're not doing the utilities or anything like that. I was bringing these people on a contract basis with Kathy. Okay,
So how much money and what are the job skills? Because I haven't seen any job duties associated with the
well,
contract.
I was in the middle of doing that
So
until I was
how much
told
money are
not
we
to.
talking about? How often? And I thought that person was supposed to go out on visits, on calls.
No,
Because-
not as a contract person. I want to bring her on with specific job duties at $25 an hour, no more than 30 hours a month. $750 max.
Wait, repeat that, please.
$25 an hour, max of 30 hours a month. And she is in charge, she would be in charge of doing the CE hours that everybody's required to do on a monthly basis. She would be in charge of protocol testing, working directly with the medical director in order to develop skills testing that needs to be brought in.
Doesn't that need to be done on the ambulance itself when you're out, like on calls?
No,
So what's going on?
not until beforehand. Paramedics have a big time responsibility. They are given a protocol book. And in those protocols, yes, even though you can look it up online, but it's important for that paramedic to know what they need to be doing. They need to be tested on that in order, because I won't feel comfortable putting somebody out there on an ambulance, especially when I became part of this community and knowing everybody. I don't want to put somebody out there on an ambulance that could possibly hurt or kill somebody.
I don't think any of us want that, Brian.
No, ma'am. No, we don't. We want competent individuals. The problem that I'm having is there's only so many paramedics to go around. Paramedics, as we sat in that workshop meeting, are very hard to come by. You know, when I talked to Lori, she has a class of 20 EMTs that are going through the class. Out of that 20, she says 4 go on to paramedic school. Out of that 4, maybe 2 complete.
You're talking Lori Reeves that's done this for
That's
you.
correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
Are there any models in Iowa? I was recently out of state and happened to talk to somebody just casually about ambulance, and he said, yeah, do what we do here. They train high school kids
Well,
and they become EMTs.
They're trying, I think not Washington, but Wapello County had
That's
something
through
about
the
that.
college, but this is like an on-the-job
right.
kind of training thing or after school. You know, they can do things
There's
like
a
that.
lot of different models, as you have brought up, that they're trying to get people into these classes, whether they pay them $12 an hour, whether they pay for half their classes, and then we pay a percentage of 40%, and then they contribute to 60%. They pay for their gas. Me being old school, I've never heard of that. To me, an individual that invests their own money and their own time into something, I think they're more apt to stay in the class because they want to be there. Now, if there's a financial thing about it, of them being able not to come to the class or whatever that may be, I think we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But
Okay, so I got another question
Yes,
about this contract. And that is, we all got an email last week about something about a possible of a countywide EMT or something. You probably,
That was from that's the volunteer organization. That was from the leadership advisory committee.
so is this position with doing, where is that? And I know there's more work that needs to be done on that,
Yeah,
but it seems to me, we don't want to duplicate. And
That was our first meeting of which you guys appointed the people to serve on that.
Right,
That was our first meeting. I think it'll end up being quarterly. Brian and Judy were both there. We were trying to figure out a way for the volunteer services to maybe come together to get a more economical rate on insurance, but we don't know what that looks like. The EMS Association is a 501c3 organization with, officers and bylaws, et cetera.
so what I'm hearing for the time being,
It's staying like it, that is separate from
Yes.
this discussion.
thank you, that's all I
Yeah,
wanted to know
that's
for
separate
now.
from this discussion.
Okay.
That's not to say that you don't have volunteers that could possibly want to be paid people on the service, because I know
Right.
historically there have been.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I know we're all focused on, well, having everybody hired on the 18th, okay? And that includes,
Paramedic.
yeah, that includes everybody coming in all at one time. But, well, let's say we do that, okay? Let's all wait for the 18th and hire everybody. That gives us 2-week prep. Your eval class, your skills testing, and all that, of which I'm good at time management, but I mean, I get so focused on other things that, we make a list of who's coming in, interviewing, bringing them in. It's always better to have additional eyes to say, oh, hey, Brian, you forgot this, because you don't want to get to midnight of 1 and not have it, and not being able to getting on that ambulance and finding out, crap, we don't have extra monitor batteries. Why didn't we think about that, right? It's a preparation issue. And it's in my budget. We've already planned for this. And bringing them on is only beneficial.
Well, I want to ask a question. There's a 2-week window from September 18th to September 30th. 12 days, whatever it is. During that time period, at least towards the end of it, hopefully, I don't know what will ultimately end up, arrangements will end up making with CARE regarding receiving the rigs that they're currently using. But all of that, plus the new rig, hopefully we have the new rig here as well, there's gonna be a mad rush and that 2 or 3 days leading up to that to get those ambulances stopped and ready to roll so that you can hit the ground running. We can't do that after the fact. And it was always my understanding, maybe I understood incorrectly, but it was always my understanding. And I know that's not what we're talking about with these particular individuals, but it was always my understanding that we were going to interview and hire and set start dates so that we can have people on our roster so we know we have them with a potential start date of X, September 18th or September 21st.
Right.
Or whatever the start date is.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Right, so that we would have that. So having the interviews and doing that, I agree with Susie, that's something that we should be doing. And I think in that process, if it's determined that candidate A is the cat's meow, then you get candidate A locked in.
In fact, if I recall, we had that conversation in my office. We worked backwards from an October 1st go date, 2 weeks of training, what have you, assuming people need to give 2 days or 2 weeks notice to their employer.
Correct.
That interviews needed to be done and offers made at the deadline end of August. So interviews starting now is appropriate, I think.
Well, also,
You all right?
Not really, but go ahead.
well, and also, when you look at these people, we need to
It's not Dr. Pepper, that's.
get some things settled currently, and that's in preparation for upcoming, because we got 6 weeks and we got talking to Brett Farrell regarding comms, we gotta make sure we're all can communicate. That's essential. You know, we gotta make sure that all our inventory is accounted for. I need somebody to go through that. We gotta make sure our monitors work and our agreements are in place and the hospital agreement that we're working on. And meeting with the pharmacy and making sure that all the drugs that come in are
You guys have
accounted
been working on that, right?
Mhm.
12 hours a day,
That's it.
5 days a week,
Yep.
sometimes 6. And the amount of meetings that we go to, and it's important for Judy to be there as well. The reason why is she needs to know what I know. It's a hierarchy. It's a continuum issue, okay? Because and I know she can't be there all the time, but if something happens, if I have to go out of town to another meeting, or if I am out for some reason, she can fill into that spot. That's important to know that there is no difference in leadership. Granted, the roles are as they are, but yeah, she needs to be a part of it. Absolutely. That's from my background, you always have your deputy attend. Correct.
And Brian, my biggest issue
Yes.
is the fact that I want you to interview more than one person for a position,
Right.
because that's how they do it in other.
Understood. But I have a lot of EMTs. Okay, I have 6 full-time EMT positions. It's not counting alternates if somebody calls off.
Correct.
Paramedics, I'm finding it very hard to come by. And yes, I agree, we're going to interview everybody. We are in the process of doing that. But
Let me
Why-
ask you a question.
yes, ma'am.
How many have you interviewed for the training position?
I interviewed one.
Yeah.
Good
How many have you interviewed for the lease manager position?
one, but it was already,
I'm just asking. How many?
well,
have you
no, I understand.
interviewed? And how many was that?
It was advertised,
But how many did you interview?
one.
I just
But
want the
at-
supervisors to be above reproach.
But,
The cream will always rise to the top.
right,
We just got to do it the right way.
yes, ma'am. But you and I had that conversation a while back, that I advertised at the hospital, I advertised here, and then I advertised on the Southeast Iowa newspaper, which
And you
also
didn't
is,
advertise in the one place I asked you to when
What's
you first started, I am, so
you did not have the dues paid, ma'am.
we
And
had a chance to get them paid. You were given all that stuff when you started.
no, I ended up having to send them a check, but you did have your proper credentials, but they would not put me
Right.
on the IM's website until I got that email. I just want to be clear and on the same page that I know that I don't think you realize how many quality candidates are not out there. We need to identify who that best person is. And sometimes we're only going to get one.
Right.
And that's just,
Brian, what do you think the issue is? Is it money? I know that looking at the jobs, you guys are going to offer a lot more than a lot of the areas around here.
what do you mean? As
You're
far
offering a
as
lot more for a starting wage.
for EMTs and paramedics, we're right there in the middle.
So we looked around bigger places than us, and we're right around where they're at, around Iowa City, North Liberty, those areas.
I mean, when
I would
Washington
imagine they would get
pays
more money
more.
up there.
Henry County pays more.
well, yeah, they got.
Judy,
bigger
what
tax
do they
base.
pay? Just, I don't know.
Last time I knew, I had a exit employee from CARE that worked there, came and visited me one day. He's making over $26 an hour as an EMT.
When I went.
And they just started that increase like in July, I think.
That would be
Is that
quite-
Good to know.
Is that like as a
contractor or?
Because that means they
Hourly
went up from
wage.
they
Yes.
raised it $10 an hour because they were paying.
He was making over
$16
$20 an hour when he was working for CARE. As an
But I know
EMT.
him and Kenny was paying $16.01 in December, because that's when I
Yeah,
was.
And this was earlier this year.
And that was to start.
Yeah, I
but-
was just curious about the money. This is curious.
I know paramedics right now, I don't know, I think our wage is low.
Well, let's put that as perspective too, because Susie brings up a good point. We've talked about this. A lot of times when you go on the website, a website or whatever, and she's looking for paramedic jobs and it says $65,000 a year for paramedic, right? Okay. And you think, oh my gosh.
Right.
Well, that's what we're paying our base manager. How are we going to get a paramedic? We have to stop and think. And these websites do this on purpose because that's what attracts versus $65,000, not $25 an hour.
Right.
But you do get $25 an hour and 48 hours a week, and it's $66,000 a year. So our attitude has to change a little bit, not our attitude, our perspective of what we're looking at when we're looking at $25 a year is $66,000 a year. So the
Are we putting
question,
that on the ad?
I'm sorry,
Are we putting that on the ad?
I don't know what we're putting on the end. What I'm,
We're only advertising. Attention.
okay, so, but my point is that we collectively are looking at this and we don't think about it in those terms. We think about it at $25 an hour. And Washington County, and I don't know that they are, I'm just using hypothetical. Washington County's paying 28. Van Buren's paying 27. I don't know what they're paying, but if there are competition, that goes from 66,000 to 70,000. So, okay, so where I'm coming from on this is that it does sound like our wage is low when you talk about that, but when you look at what the annual income is, where do we want to stop that? And I don't know, I don't have a good answer to that, because you're right. If I've got to compete with her county, then we've got to do something. But as long as we put that in perspective and understand that we're pushing the envelope between $60,000 and $70,000 a year for a paramedic to work 2 days a week. And when I say 2 days a week, I mean 2 24-hour shifts.
I think originally we were naive to think we could get them for cheaper than that's what you're saying.
Well, I think, I think that there's a learning curve there, yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad we didn't do market research to figure that out now so we can avoid all this.
There's also, incentive benefits for the county. I mean,
Lock the door after that.
just because it's $25 an hour, $25 an hour here to somewhere else, there are, life benefits and health insurance that might not be taken into account.
And I think that would be helpful if we could get, and I've asked for this for years, is there a way somebody can figure out how much percentage that is? Because it's huge, the
Yes.
private entity, there's no way you can compare the benefits.
I know a while back, 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, Brian made the comment about people that train to do this. They have the money to do this training.
Correct.
This community is rife with people who didn't have the money but got government assistance to help do this.
Okay.
So I do not discredit those people.
No, I'm not.
We have some in this room.
Right. No, I'm not discrediting. I'm just referring to my experience, okay?
Yeah.
And my experience was that when, I went through paramedic school way back when, you had people that went, and I never heard of them paying somebody to go there. I'm not discrediting them. I'm just saying that people that paid, I see a higher, hey, I want this and I'm going to do everything I can type thing. Okay. I'm not
I just want you to know
negating
that there are
attitudes.
people out there that couldn't afford it. The government did help them.
Correct.
They've been working on programs since 1964.
Right.
So
No,
do not discredit those people.
No, ma'am, I'm not discrediting. I'm just referring from my own experience.
I've worked with a lot of them. And they're doing a great job today.
No.
If I could name them, I would.
Understood, but that's, what we're saying. Yeah, if maybe we could get more paramedics if we went up on the wage. I don't know. But, my thing is, there's only, in other states, the state where I come from, we had 36,000 paramedics statewide. Here, 1,500. But you're competing with the youth, you're competing with hospitals, you're competing with other
Sure.
entities. So
Our plan is to have 6.
6 full-time this year.
How many do we have on the hook?
And
Thanks for
some of
coming.
those are
Thanks for
not,
coming back.
some of those
Does that
are
include you too?
not full-time.
No, like
No.
be 4 and 5 with
Okay.
Brian, which I'm perfectly fine with Brian.
But we want to offer a weekend package. I got a gentleman that wants to apply. He's 4 hours away. It only makes sense for him to drive all the way out here, do his 48-hour shift, and then take it back. That's reasonable.
Is he from Iowa? Just curious.
Yes.
Yeah. Up by Redwick, Boone area, up in that area,
Correct.
whatever that little tiny town is.
I mean, you're gonna have to get creative, I'm
I think
sure,
that's all good
Yeah.
use of time.
which is hard to do within a county system, so
It,
work
it,
with Chauncey on that.
It is, but this has never been, so I know we have growing pains and there are things that I've never run up against personally. And, we're all on the same team and the individuals that are back there, they all have vested interest because they've done it so long.
Yeah. Brian, I would say this, and I've said this many times. Under CARE, you guys had 4 bosses. Now you have 15,600 and some bosses.
Correct.
There's growing pains.
Yes, ma'am.
And we live in
They're
a
always in
glass
a glass bowl. And when people say something, I'll pass it on to you. I have.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, sir. No, and I understand that. And, when I interview people, I tell them, when you leave this base and you go out there and you're in the public eye, you're gonna have your shirt tucked in, you're gonna have, you're not gonna look like snot. You're gonna look professional because when those lights, and when people hear those lights and sirens, and when we arrive, people go, thank God you're here. We're professional. And when people, when I went to the Kiwanis meeting and stuff like that, people sometimes are afraid to call 911. They don't know if somebody's going to show up right now. Or if they do, is it going to be in a timely manner, right? So I'm hope, my thing is to alleviate that. To put somebody professional on there that I would trust in going to my house and taking care of my family. Because, for all of us who live here, that's what matters. And
So what kind of trainings do you need to have happen
beforehand,
with your trainer? You want to hire a trainer?
yes, that
And is that just to get started or is that ongoing? Because I still go back.
that's good.
That's in your job description, very
Right.
clearly responsible for all new field staff training.
Yeah, and we do train them to a point, but there's other things that setting up CE hours, getting that done, training with image trends. We got to make sure everybody is on the go for that because we don't
That
want
seems
to.
Does everybody have to do image training?
Everybody does, yes. And I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's all within our job description, but do we have the time and the ability
I
to do
believe
that?
that you should have the time to do that.
Well, and the bigger question I'm asking, because I don't know the answer to this, are there state requirements for certain types of training that you have
Yes.
to have certain certifications? So then the $64 question, if that's indeed the case, is do you have those certifications? And if not, can you get those certifications?
Can I? Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of certifications listed in your job descriptions
Well,
already.
yes, and I have most certifications, but in doing so and being the director, I am not the great and powerful Wizard of Oz behind the curtain and able to do everything. If I could do everything and ride the truck and drive and take care of them back,
I can't believe you don't do all that.
well, no, man, I don't.
I've seen you try.
But
Yeah, I know.
putting people in those positions that will help, that can, I don't have all the expertise. And we surround ourselves with people that are good in these areas. That's what a good director does. A president that comes in, he brings in his little catalyst because he puts people in positions where they exceed and they're perfect for that, if you will. And then you trust those individuals to do their specific job descriptions. My thing is I bring people together. I work on the state, work on the training, work on the insurance and all this, and then putting them into motion. I can do that. Can I oversee all these at one time? No, ma'am, I cannot.
Chris, you have a question, a statement
Well,
for the good of the order?
what, for the good of the order? No, so
Yes, yeah.
what might be helpful for the supervisors, I know my Board of Health understands that we have a 3-year license. Okay, as nurses, we have a 3-year license. You guys have what, 2-year certification, certification? So within that 3-year license period for a registered nurse in Iowa, we have to have 36 contact hours or 36 CEUs. And so, and for us, it's a little different. I know you guys have to have specific training. We don't. It depends if you work in a different area. So for us, we can get a lot of stuff online or attend trainings or whatever the case may be. So we don't have to have all of those. You can wait till your license is due for renewal. You don't have to do it throughout the whole time frame. So maybe it would be beneficial for them to understand what is considered professional training, what's not professional training. And then explain to the supervisors, because I've done this to my board, it's like, you can get whatever, whenever. And then they'll understand what's required on a monthly basis, because when they're looking at contract service, they have to know what is gonna be provided every month. I can say this because I've worked in the government for almost 16 years. So that might be something that's helpful, because we know that like ACLS and PALS, your advanced classes, your advanced cardiac classes are good for a 2-year certification, because I used to be an instructor. Your basic life support is good for 2 years. So those are things that are standard education across the board, but it's a 2-year certification. Then you don't have to do anything with that. Like mandatory reporter for dependent and child abuse is, they just changed it, it's 3 years now. Yeah, it used to be
And do you
5
have to go
years.
to the Southwest to do that? or
No, it's
is
all
that-
online, that's all online.
It's online.
Yeah, abuse is online. The mandatory reporter classes are online, and it's at no charge, and you can get nursing
Right,
seats
no, I
for
used to
that.
have to take those.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to help with the process to maybe understand what would be, and I know that Kathy does stuff for the Volunteer EMS Association, I know she does training for that. But for you guys to understand what is gonna be going, and I don't know, there's driving courses, what is that?
Correct.
EVOC. Yeah, EVOC. And I don't
Yeah.
know who all is an instructor, if that would have to be done outside of.
What do you just either tell us or make
I mean,
a
I'm
list,
just
or
trying
give
to
a
think of a
list
way to
for
help
us and
them.
say, how often does that
Yeah.
happen? Because I know,
Yeah.
I mean, I used to have training, some was annual, some was every.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a way to,
Right.
I don't know if it's a set schedule or what.
And
Thank you.
Chris is right, and I understand where Dee's coming from too. But I also think we need to remember that, this isn't, I've got 6 paramedics, I've got 6 EMTs, I've got these part-time EMTs and part-time paramedics, and I've got all, and their certifications all come due at different times.
Right.
Okay, it's not like I can schedule a class and have everybody there at one time. First of all,
Right.
some of them are on track, some of them are not on track. But the certification that X needs is not necessarily the certification that Y needs at the same time, and so you have, but the other thing I think we need to keep in mind, and I'm not advocating for or against, I'm just saying something we need to keep in mind, is we're talking about an up to. There may be a month that we do nothing. okay, it's an up to, it's,
Right.
and on an as-need basis.
So it's not
So
necessarily.
you're not talking about
every
us
month.
doing nothing. Assuming.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's on an as-need basis too, I think. But my point simply is that, first off, you may have a month where you have, a class that has 4 or 5 hours tied to it. And you may have a month where we don't have anything tied to it because people, it's like loan payments come due at different times.
Sure.
No, we get that.
So Chris, can I ask you? 3 years for a mandatory reporter?
Yeah, it used to be 5. They've made some changes at the state level.
Would it be
There's-
prudent for everybody to start out at once to do it again?
Well,
Or are we gonna do nickel and dime that?
that training is at no charge,
Yeah.
and that's under the Department
Correct.
of Health and Human Services.
And that's
I've been through the
Yeah.
training.
So that's at no charge. But yeah, they kind of grandfathered everyone in. If you still had a 5-year certificate that had a cutoff date where your 5-year certificate was still considered good, because they made some updates to the training, but that is something that, like, we all renew in March or April. That's just because of the way it fell, because the
Sure,
training previous, we did have face to face. So, that's one of those things, but like ACLS and PALS, those advanced classes, it's like we said, you're gonna have some people that are all in the same renewal month, and then you're gonna have other people that are coming in, they taking a class someplace else, but
And they'll know that.
Yeah, you
They'll
have to
know
be
that when they
responsible
start
for your own
these folks,
license.
so you'll have a schedule.
yeah, yes, yeah, like my
How much of
nurses,
that has to be done by a trainer? How much can be done?
that's a Kathy question for nurses, it's a
Okay,
little different
Kathy,
because.
how much has to be done by a trainer?
For the ACLS, you're looking at anywhere from 4 to 8 hours for a class, depending on if it's renewal. And if it's,
For mandatory reporter, we could get that someplace else.
Yeah, that's right.
They just log online. They just log
Yeah.
online.
And ACLS and PALS is the online too.
Yeah.
You
but
can
you
take.
still have to
But you
do.
still have
you still have to
But
check
these
it
are the
off,
kind
but
of
it's an
things
option.
that,
You can still do
and
it online.
with
Check
what
off.
Dee's talking about,
Okay.
under my job description, these are the things that I would do. I would make sure they had their mandatory reporter, they had their certifications were up to date, whether they were CPR certified, whether they have their ICS 100, 200, and 800. They have to have that. They'll have to do a HIPAA and bloodborne pathogen. They have to do a sexual harassment thing. And this stuff, some of this stuff is offered through our billing company to help us with that.
Okay.
And they could go online and they'll get it through there. There is,
How much of this could Kathy do if Kathy was hired for this position?
as long as they already have all this stuff done, it's just a matter of just verifying the dates. But that's what I would do, or Brian, when we
I'm
hire
just
them.
curious,
And we hand it to them. We're talking more on Kathy or a trainer. It doesn't have to be just her to help with like setting up an EBOC class, teaching PALS, teaching ACLS, teaching
So my question is-
PHTLS,
my question
stuff
is-
that I'm not certified to teach.
My
I
question
mean, I
is
have it,
this,
but I'm not certified to teach it.
can other entities say, I'd like to take this training?
Yeah, and they're more than
And-
welcome to
and
come
would we
along with
bill them
us.
For that?
Well,
Yes,
but
yes, you would charge them
Would
to
they
do
be,
it.
would they be more expensive than what Kathy's charging? Yes. they would.
No, she's just saying other.
Oh,
other-
yes.
If
Other
somebody else
entities.
also wants that training and you guys are available, could we offer?
I
that?
think it would
Oh,
help
yes,
us if
yes.
we had
And we had talked about
like a
that
contract
at the
that
EMS
lets us
Association
what-
meeting.
And
what the duties are,
Training
how
class
often.
and getting
And
all of our
that's
first
what I was
responders to do.
doing.
it.
And we need to know what's
Because I
available
guess I'm
online.
thinking-
It's like,
yes, ma'am.
If we take this stuff, it would be nice
if
if
they're,
Henry
and believe
County,
me, some
Walker
online
County, whatever, if
classes
they
are
needed
fine,
training,
some are
they
not.
could
I get
guarantee
that, I've
us to
taken
do
it.
it.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
we've had
And
people
some
in
are
the
on
past that's
pay and
done
some
that,
are
that's
not.
came to what we
But I
call
think
our,
We have got to be
EMS day.
prudent with taxpayer dollars.
and
This
it's a
is
Yes.
bunch of different
roads.
speakers
So
from Des Moines,
we
from
can't
Iowa
just be
City, from
going
Cedar
out and-
Rapids that come down and speak to EMS
In other
when
words,
we
there's
plan
no
the job
counting on them. She
descriptions,
just-
you know,
Yes,
training
we've
was
done it.
involved in
Yeah.
that.
for
So
years that way.
you gotta
But
have
that's
it
Good to know, because
added
we're naive
on.
here,
It's,
including,
Well,
it's more money.
I appreciate that.
well,
Some of
and
the things,
with
Go
the
ahead.
contract,
Good.
some of the things also within training, we're talking about these are certification classes. But when we're looking at chart reviews and things like this, we find out paramedic X and Y have been very crappy on their innovations. They've got, 3 out of, 1 out of 3, or something, they can't, they're having problems. That's where this would be, I come in, work with them, because I have all the mannequins and stuff. I can come in, work with them, get them proficient up to where they're gonna be able to do the skills when they get out there, because that's
I
the
just want to
thing.
make sure, Kathy, that if we do this, we get paid for this. This is the only first chance we're gonna get for this ambulance.
Right.
So how does this work if she's not an actual employee? Because there's so much HIPAA stuff going on. Because I know as an employee, she can look at the records and all that stuff.
No, she would be bred on, if you will, and she'll have access to certain things on image trend as far as chart reviews go.
But then that goes into quality improvement, not
Well,
training, right?
no,
Or the fine
understood,
line.
but she could help identify, because as I already do CQI, she will do CQI, but there has to be also a third individual that overlooks everything as well. And that could be part of
Send
the
certain things to the
contract.
medical director, because the medical director wants certain charts, like major traumas, any helicopter flights, anybody who goes into cardiac arrest, any intubations, any
Okay,
peds,
that's helpful.
Right.
So
certain
that's what the
calls.
medical director has requested.
Yes, the medical director, Amanda, has requested these certain calls get flagged every time. They get reviewed by Brian and I, then they go and get reviewed between her and a CQI officer or all of us together, There's things like that. The other things that some people have been helping with is like 400 and, I don't know, some pages of protocols. Okay, yeah. 400 some pages of protocols, state protocols. We have to go through and read those pages word by word, line by line, to make sure everything is what we need for our county, our service, and what the medical director. I've read it
Is
2 or
Jeff
3
looking at
times.
those or
These are not, they're not HR things. They're what
Right.
the protocols
Medical.
are on how, what certain meds and certain steps you have to take. And they're at the state level. So we printed those out, we've added things, we've removed things that is specific to our service here.
Correct.
I've looked at them, Brian's looked at them, we've had a couple other people read through them. I don't know how many times we've read through them, 3 or 4 times, and we've find little tiny things we're missing. You have to make sure drug dosages are correct in those. Then it goes to Amanda to finalize, which that's what we're doing now. So that's some of the stuff that these volunteers who have agreed to sit down and look through to make sure we're not missing something that's been helping us still. I don't have all day to read 500 pages worth of, there's other things we need to be doing, creating,
At times.
documentations and, going through supplies, talking to vendors all day long.
But this position will be spelled out. And it's not more than 30 hours a month, and it could be less, but not over. And I personally, I think that would only benefit us, benefit me in getting things up and going.
We could, Susie, I guess it's Susie. We can establish a fee schedule, so we see what it is too.
Well, and she would give an invoice, if you will.
Oh, no, what I meant was, go back to what Susie said. So we establish a fee schedule for those that would, shall we say, outside the system. That would.
Oh, I see what you're saying, as far as
Mhm.
bringing in other,
Others.
correct,
Does that make
yes,
sense?
revenue. Understood.
Well, I'm just talking about what the schedule is, so.
I think we're in this to make some profit for the county.
Yes.
We need to not be giving too much away for free.
Well,
I can tell you, having been an instructor for years and years at the hospital, you don't make any money when you teach classes. You go in the hole, actually. This is American Heart Rules, what is it, 6? It used to be 6 students to 1 instructor. It might be more than that now. Yeah, so you don't generate revenue, because by the time you pay your salary for your
But Chris,
instructors and
isn't
stuff.
the issue not to lose money?
I get that, that's why I'm bringing it up, because I know the
Okay.
hospital's not teaching classes in the community. now.
Right, but if somebody just calls and says, hey,
Yeah.
county, we hear you have a trainer, can I
Yeah.
take it?
Right.
Then it's perfectly legit to say, yeah, we're charging X number of dollars. for this.
Because we need them here
That's what we're
first.
talking about.
Correct.
you
Yeah.
know?
But clearly, the bigger and the focus is our own service. We just need people make calls, so we got to have that ready.
You know, when it comes to, revenue coming in, and that's what I'm working on with the image trend and the billing company. And that's a lot of work. I'm answering questions and making sure things are going right and URL numbers and all that. And that's ready for us to start billing on October the 1st with those first calls that come in that we can overly look at and then send them also to the billing company, does their thing, and they send them back to us. This is what we're prepping for and trying to get our ambulances back within a reasonable period of time so we can get them started. Make sure that we have comms and get those updated in our handhelds and all that. And I'm working with Brett Farrell on that too. There's it's hard to say how much is involved unless you were to go down there and sit with me and see what all is there, because there's just a plethora of people we talk to and we
I
meet
understand
with.
what goes on behind the scenes. I've set up many clinics. for
Well,
folks.
I
get it.
understand. This is EMS, and there's a lot to it, especially when there's no structure being there.
So what else do we need to work on today?
We've done a phenomenal job. I mean, we got our MPI number, we got the billing company, image trends, we got, trying to get things
Correct.
set up with.
I just want all of us to be on the same page, the three of us to know the same thing.
Yes, ma'am.
I do not want
Understood.
one person to know more than the other. We all need to know.
So I want to know.
It's the only way we can help you is if we all know.
Well, agreed. And I would ask, when, I want y'all to come to meetings and because coming to those meetings, then what, different things. It's important. I agree. 100%. We all need to be on the same page.
So what other positions are out there that we don't know about? We're gonna be out there.
EMT, the paramedic, the training coordinator, and that's it.
That's
Yes,
it.
ma'am. And we are, you saw them on Indeed, you saw it on Career Builder, we're on
Better team.
Better Teams, which goes out to various online entities.
Brian, I
So-
know you said you've advertised here at the courthouse.
That's correct.
You've advertised in the town crier.
Correct.
You haven't advertised on IMSA. You have advertised on Indeed, so you say, and I'm taking your word for it.
Well, I would say. yes,
I
ma'am.
just get anything through word of mouth. I'm sure you should around here.
Well,
Because Judy and these guys, they know people are interested.
well,
It's word of mouth.
and word of mouth, we're on Facebook, we are advertising. The problem is it could be a pay issue. It could be maybe we're showing the numbers incorrectly. Maybe we need to show it as a yearly thing based off of 40 hours. I don't know.
You can always try that.
But the problem is, and talking with the state a few weeks ago during the workshop, everybody is having these issues.
Right, they're well aware of that.
And
That's what I was gonna say, if we remember in the meetings that we had, when Care Ambulance wanted to charge $1.5 million a year,
Yeah,
multiple times, it was stated by Bob Libby that you can't find paramedics.
right.
And so Now. I'm
Unless you
not-
want to pay traveling paramedics at
Well, no, that too, but.
$125 an hour. I mean,
You know, we,
that's your
you know,
next.
we'll do what we need to do to make sure that we provide the service for the residents of Jefferson County, and whatever that takes. But that being said, I think that it behooves us to remember that this is not a new phenomenon
Right.
in terms of that.
I know that.
And, you know, if we all remember back, Midwest had the same problem. And Midwest wouldn't even enter into an agreement whereby we had a paramedic on every rig because of that issue. And so we can advertise, and I'm not suggesting we don't. But what I'm saying is that we can advertise till the cows come home. And if the cows forget where home is, they're just not gonna show up.
You know, the
Like that analogy or that metaphor?
Yes.
Midwest issue was Midwest issue. CARES, Midwest was Midwest issue. CARE was their issue.
Right.
This is ours. We just need to
You know
step
what the
away.
analogy is, Lee? If there are no cows, they're not gonna show up.
But, you know,
Yeah.
Okay, that's
and,
what I said. Okay.
but Susie is right, but the commonality.
Wait a minute. Let's don't get carried away.
Hey, no, no,
I'm
he's on the
just-
right track.
Okay.
No, and what I want to say to that, okay, yes, we are not Midwest, we are not CARE. But the common denominator is our geographic location. That hasn't changed.
I think it has. You guys are willing to look at somebody 4 hours away.
Well,
It's a huge step.
yes, and you are correct.
And
but,
that's
you know,
good. I mean, I
It's
think we
very
need to
good.
do what we need to do.
Right, but we're still 4 hours away, you're still looking at rural America. And the problem is that, you know, people don't want to be paramedics, they want to be nurses, or they want to be,
They make more money than we do.
or whatever.
Not to hear Christoph.
And, but, you know,
I was gonna say, you have medics that went to nursing because. you know,
Yeah.
There is a, and I'm not suggesting we do this at this point, but one of you brought up, maybe it was you brought up earlier about, shall we say, thinking outside the box of somewhere where you were at, where they were training high school students.
Mhm.
Some services, and I think maybe CARE was one of them. And again, I'm just, at this point, I'm not advocating, I'm just saying that Joe goes and he gets his EMT training. And then Kara says, hey, Joe, if you want to get your paramedic training, we'll cover it.
Right,
But then we'll contract with you so that paramedic comes to us
right.
for a period
No,
of time.
New
I'm
Jersey
not-
County does something like that, and then they require, they'll pay for them to go to paramedics school, but then they require them to work like 2 or
Right.
3 years.
I don't know
whatever it
whether that's an ideal situation, not an ideal situation. What I'm saying is that in this world, that indeed does happen.
Mhm.
And that's how you, so with the arrangement that you've all made with Indian Hills,
yes.
you know, there is that possibility. And I'm not advocating, I'm just saying that if push comes to shove, that may be something that we revisit
Correct.
in that partnership.
But that's like it takes a year and a half. I think it's 18 months
Right.
for most places. So it's not anything that we can start today.
And we can
We need to worry
also,
about
I
what we
think we
need
should
to
enter an agreement for
do
them
Figure
to
out
do
what
their
to make
happens.
sure we're ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
How long have these jobs been posted?
A long time.
We-
On IAMSA since May.
I know IAMSA's been on there a while. I just
I know,
wanted-
Indeed.
Indeed's been over almost a month and a half.
Okay.
Um,
Well, maybe you should
In the
consider
paper.
changing it into the annual total instead
So,
and try
and
that.
that's one thing we look at, whatever it takes, right?
you know, I just want to make quick statements. The president of the college in Indian Hills is a friend of mine. And I had talked to him quite a while ago about EMTs, paramedics and stuff like that. And he said, they do graduate.
they what?
They do graduate, but they go on to be nurses because they
Right.
can make more money.
That's correct.
So I understand that.
But if we could, and I'm not advocating, this is just a thought. So if I say to Susie, and yeah, so Susie's thinking about going on to be a nurse, right? But if
I wouldn't do that.
well, okay, but Susie graduates as a paramedic and we've paid Susie's be a paramedic.
You lock them in.
If
for
we've
some-
locked you in for a couple of years, you still go get your nurse's training. And then you go on to be a nurse, but we've locked you in.
Yeah, my point, you hadn't let me get to my point. My point is this. Anyone else goes to school 4 days a week. What's wrong with catching these people for a part-time job on the weekends? A shift.
And they've agreed to do clinicals.
Okay,
We
and
made
we
those
didn't know that.
arrangements.
I'd like to know.
Well, he just said it.
Well, I know. When did you decide that? Months ago? I'd like to know it.
Well, yeah, again, there's a lot of things that go on in our world that we're like, oh yeah, we met with Lori.
That's what a PRN part-time position would be, or a
Correct.
weekend package.
Do we have any applications for those then?
Yes.
Good, thank you, Julie.
They're EMTs.
But, you know,
Majority of them are EMTs.
I know we agreed upon a budget, and I would ask that y'all trust me, okay? To operate within those parameters, and I need to get people on at certain intervals, okay? By no means am I going to go outside the process or anything like that. I'm just trying to get this up and going. And that's, I've done this for 35 years. And I'm consulting.
You're only 27.
Right, I'm consulting with Jack. I'm doing, all these things. I just ask that the board, trust me, I'll keep you informed on a regular basis. And let me try to get some, the training coordinator and Cassie on board to help out, so we are.
Are there any policies that we should look at? Like anything to do
We're
with,
working with Jack on those. He just sent in his email. He's gonna finish up this week on some of them, send them to
That's
us to
correct.
review.
because if it's anything that involves contracts or insurance of any kind, we need to be included in it.
Correct. No, the contract for, other than us working on the contract for the hospital tomorrow between Chauncey and Vanessa, that's what we're working on, and the pharmacy agreement we got coming up on Thursday.
Okay.
If the board okays it, if I can do a contract with the individual that's sitting behind me, then it will be very spelled out. There'll be a draft that you can see first.
Well, I'd prefer you to draft it with Chauncey first and get his blessing and process.
That's correct. But I can't overemphasize, we got 6 weeks. And
Brian, I just get mixed signals.
from what?
Not from you. I have a friend
Right.
whose son was gone to the military for a year.
Okay,
He worked at a tunnel region.
okay,
He comes back and he got a little bit of a raise from $16 to $22 an hour.
okay.
So I'm real confused about the pay rate. I'm still very annoyed that I think we need to interview more than one person for a job.
Well, and no,
It's only right.
agreed. Well, what I'm saying is we have it out for EMTs, paramedics. So people that want to be EMTs are coming in, okay?
Mhm.
People that are, paramedics, I have their resumes and I'm looking at their resumes, okay? And for nothing for their training coordinator. And I go with, you look at somebody who's already been here, who's been in the community. Yes.
So you're going to interview however many people you're going to interview for EMTs,
Correct.
however many people that is, however many people you got.
Correct.
Whether you hire them all or not, that's
Right.
another question. But one of those interviews for EMT is Cassie Regal,
Correct.
because that's what she's going to be as an EMT.
Correct.
This isn't a special position.
What is it? I don't know anything about this one.
Well, that's whose name was on the agenda. this morning.
Right, but we
Okay.
didn't talk about it.
Well, no,
What
but
is
I'm
it?
just saying
What-
that
what-
she is an emergency medical technician.
Correct.
And she's one of, I don't know how many resumes you've got for emergency medical technicians. but
Nine.
We've already done 5. Just for
Correct.
EMT, 6, including hers.
Correct.
We just did 2 today before we came up here.
But that was that on as a hire or a contract? I'm
That was a
confused.
hire.
So higher, correct.
And again, I would just want more people interviewed.
Yes,
If you
no,
guys were interviewing for a job and you somebody else had only interviewed one person, how would you feel?
well, no.
Because you
I-
think you're qualified too?
I believe that I am. Yes, ma'am,
I don't know.
because a lot of my life that I'm very proud of.
And ask him to work on your pool.
Yes,
I
but,
won't.
Okay.
yes, we interviewed, you know, but
I appreciate that.
there comes a time, you know, as we get closer that we have to put people in place.
But you're not gonna skip procedures to do that.
No, ma'am, we're not skipping, but if I see a quality candidate and this happens all over the place.
There is one thing I like as you bring us people, and this applies to any department head. If anybody on the staff is related or friends, just tell us so we know, because the community will tell us if we don't
Right.
find out here.
Yeah.
And we'd
they'll tell
rather
us.
hear it firsthand. We just found out this morning that one on Progressive Housing's your daughter. I didn't know that.
She's not an employee.
No, I know, but it would have been helpful to know.
Who in
Oh, I
who in
didn't know it
Jefferson
was
County is
discussed
not
when we
related or
adjourned.
brother,
You and me,
sister?
yes, No, I'm just saying,
No.
we just got, we just got.
No, I
open and
understand.
honest with each other.
It's small town. I
And
think
I've been here my
everybody's
whole life,
related,
so I know
second
that.
or
I'm
cousins
friends
too,
with
right?
people. Well, I think
But I mean,
maybe not.
we're moving forward and that's the main thing. I mean,
I don't think the
despite,
handbook says anything about friends, but it does, the handbook says something about supervision of a relative.
Yeah.
that's
Can't be a
correct.
supervisor of a relative.
That's correct. And we discussed with Chauncey on
And
that.
it
I
also
know, but
has,
Chauncey hasn't talked to us about that.
it also has
It's gotta
rules.
be open.
And
So many policies you write on either operation of motor vehicles, make
Correct.
sure it coincides with what's in the handbook, because we have that covered here.
we have a
And we
driving.
had to do a different one per the state.
Correct.
And
For
and
our
I
driving
understand you'll have
policy.
more
Yes.
because of what you do, but make sure
And that's
it's
what
not
we've
in
been working with
conflict
Jack
with
on.
anything.
Yeah,
here.
and that's what, we send everything
you.
that we want in for policies or procedures. We send to Jack first to make sure. There was a few that were already in the handbook that we didn't know. So we took them out, but there's certain ones we
Good.
have to, like the driving policy that had to be uploaded for the state. It's, you
Yeah.
have to have a certain one that refers to things for
And
emergency
and
driving.
Judy, I
It's
wish Jack
differently.
would communicate with that to us.
We can start forwarding you
Right.
all these
It
emails
just-
if you'd like.
It just clears the water.
Okay.
It does.
No, I understand, but
And honestly and truthfully, I want everybody to know, we're not trying to leave anybody out of anything.
know.
There's a lot of
There's just
emails
a
that
lot
come through
going on.
every day.
yes,
You know,
Judy, I told
please
you,
come downstairs and watch us.
it's not
It's a
the,
lot.
I hate to bother you.
it's not the
because I know
people,
you're
it's just.
busy.
No, I mean-
It really is.
please do, you know, and we'll do our interview and then I'll get with the board about putting some people on next week. I'll bring them to you. Yeah,
What are you doing for background check for people?
We're
for
going to
the
go to
sheriff's
the
department,
sheriff's department. We talked to Bart last
that's
week
correct.
and at no charge,
And
they're
that-
gonna run them
It's
for
a
us.
whole
So
lot better,
Mhm.
yes.
been having to
It's
pay for it.
free and he's here.
This morning you mentioned, what was it? Was it the striker contract out of there?
That's correct.
Yes,
did-
and we
did-
have that.
Okay,
But
Yes.
what it is with Stryker,
Show her the invoice.
so
so
I got a copy of
she,
it from Julie.
yeah, she sent me one.
Yeah.
What it is, we can't tell whether it's
or
anybody's
not.
paid it or not.
No, I'm checking on that.
But if you look at, it looks like the date was 11/8 of 22 on here. And
Right.
then if you look at the invoice, it's clear back to, it's up to March of this year.
So is it paid beyond?
We
that?
don't know like
Okay.
that. And
That's
when we
helpful.
talked to, what's his name? When we talked to, when we talked to Ryan, he couldn't find this anywhere that it had been paid. He couldn't find it.
That's right.
He's our striker contact for this area. And so when buying the new stair chairs for the rigs and the cot that we have to have, we thought, well, can we just add it to this contract, just merge them together? So when we talked to him, he can't find it.
When did you talk to Ryan?
Last week. Can't tell you exact
Right,
date.
no, I got a copy of that from Julie.
But it was last week because we finalized everything that we're going to need for the cot and the 3 stair chairs that I need to get orders like today, because they were 8 weeks out last week before we would even get our ambulance cot, and we are pushing it very close to hopefully getting this on time.
And those aren't in the 2 ambulances.
Well, we need those.
Well, if we can get the new ambulance in time, and then I think it's 52 already has one, we should be fine. This cot is the one that's going in 51, I
Yeah.
believe, or
I
maybe
do
whatever,
understand you
that
don't
didn't
want
have one.
to take this to chance. I do.
I just don't want to take a chance. As long as we have the new rig and I think it's 52 that already has the cot in there with the auto load, we're fine. But we had to order another cot because one of them didn't come with it when the county bought them 3 years ago or 2 years ago.
Well, one of the cots belongs to Bob.
Yes, so he'll be taking his back and you have to match the cot with the striker system that's in there for the auto load. So,
Ryan's from Stryker, right?
yep, and that.
I am
Ryan
emailing
from-
Julie right now,
Yeah,
just to say, has it been paid? We need to find
Do you
that
want a
out.
copy of that invoice?
I have, they sent one this morning to me, but it's, I have it printed, you know.
yeah.
I just
So
want to know it's been.
as of right now, like I was telling you, and I brought all the stuff, there's 174,000 that needs to be ordered today. Just so we can get the cot, which is like 26,000.
Well, and that,
The
I know there's a lot
monitors.
of lead time, so it needs to
It,
be ordered.
yeah, like now. So, and that's why we wanted to verify, since it's in our budget, do we have to bring this stuff to you guys every single time?
The 26th and 28th with Ryan.
26 and 28, okay.
So he told you it hadn't been paid. And that was
Yes,
last
he
week.
could not find it. He could not find anything on this of it being paid or even find it in the system. But he was going to keep digging.
And it makes sense looking at the invoice because it went to.
I can't tell.
And that's not an indictment of care.
No. huh. It looks like it was supposed to be in 3 annual payments of
Which is broken out on that-
5,500.
Which is broken out on that invoice. And also, they charge sales tax on that invoice, which indicates that it went to a private
Entity.
entity.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
Good, Brian, can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
On the background checks that Clark reported, is that the mandatory reporter, I mean, one would assume that it would, but I don't know, because that goes to a different
If
area.
not, I can go to the website or.
Saying-
Say, no, I was saying they'll never, they haven't called me back.
Okay,
I've tried to call and they're like, oh,
because that's where,
right.
yeah, because you gotta. that's-
And seeing also with that, you have to either have a credit card
Right,
or you have to prepay and you have a 200.
You're ordering what,
toll
stretchers
system.
and stuff?
Makes you
we're
start
ordering a
putting
cot
$200
and 3
right?
stair
it doesn't
chairs.
take long.
2 people.
So there would be 3
Right.
stair chairs and 3
I just didn't-
cots.
I'm just trying to
That would
communicate what's
eventually
going
get
on
on to this.
Right.
with the ambulance,
That's the word.
with the 3 legged
No,
stairs.
For me.
I have no question.
Satan would be
Do you have a
ideal,
need
but
for a
we're working on this now.
lift that you have to swing with you?
Like a,
I mean,
I just was
Huh?
asking for
No, no,
clarification
I-
for you.
are you talking like a Hoyer lift?
I
Yeah.
think that's all right.
No.
You know how that is.
Couldn't,
No.
we bought what you call mega movers, these big long things that have handles to lift patients that, 4 or 5 people can lift. But we couldn't use like a Hoyer lift or anything like that. Rigs.
Question?
I just want to make sure you're interviewing more than one person.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Definitely.
We are.
Sounds like you're making some progress with that pharmacy agreement. I know that's probably
Yes, ma'am.
tedious.
And yeah, we're trying to get it, within, Vanessa looked at the agreement and there's been some back and forth and we'll hammer that out on Thursday as imperative.
Okay, is there any reason we would all benefit from meeting with Jacob together, just to touch base and see this is where we are, this is what we need to do?
Well,
Might clear the air,
I just thought it might be
everything at
helpful.
once.
Maybe.
well,
What is left?
You know,
We just sent them our
my thing
non-service
is,
agreements today.
I would hope that y'all would trust me.
No, we
and-
do,
and-
but we
Yes.
are ultimately responsible,
Yeah.
so it's important for
that's-
us to hear, and I can tell you, years ago, I was an inspector for the Department of Inspections and
Right.
Appeals, so I was in Jacob's role.
Right.
I did nursing home and in hospital dietary departments. So I worked with, in that case, the ultimate responsible was the administrator, the owners, to make sure things were right, like if they opened a new operation. This is the same scenario. It's part of that job to come in and meet with all of us. It's not,
No, understood.
it's
I
not
just,
about that. It's just, I think it might help us all just to have a chat with him.
but-
To do what?
To just see for sure where we are. We got this, we need this, answer any questions.
Well, I mean, that is certainly within your rights, Jim, absolutely. I just would have, asked that if we could do so, just, let me know ahead
Oh,
of
we
time.
would be able to
Because
help us all. I'm
it
just
is-
asking if you could get with
I
help.
just think,
Well-
Brian, I think just help everybody, just clear the air. So we all hear the same thing.
I understood. I mean, I report to you and
That way,
So
I don't
on,
have
so
to pay
forth.
attention to what Chris says. I don't have, I just hear that we all hear the same thing at the same
Right.
time.
no, I understand. I just,
She's just.
I just want y'all to have the faith and trust in me 100%, to know that what I give you is what's going on without question, because I have integrity and I have character, and that is something that's unreputed in my life.
Well, and I do, I trust you, but I want to caution that sometimes questions are for clarity.
Correct.
Because as a layman, I don't necessarily understand how Susie got flowers on her walker.
No, understood. I just
So
would
I need
ask.
clarity, so I'll ask a
You
question.
do, they sell it in the grocery store. It's called
Okay,
Claritin.
sit there. Right, okay, clarity.
Right.
So I just want to make sure, don't shake your head, shake.
But I think
just
there's
wanna
some
make sure that
things.
we understand that Sometimes questions are not, because I don't.
Right.
I just need, like when I asked Wayne, well, why are we doing this instead of doing that?
Correct. No, understood. My thing is that being the department head and the subject matter expert, if you will, a lot of the terms that are tossed around, no offense to anybody's intelligence, but there's several things that I can address for you. But by all means, you feel free to reach out, okay? And because,
I just think it's to everybody's benefit.
correct, no,
And Shannon, I do apologize for you spending a little too much time with Lee and Dee today.
Hey,
So are we done for today? So,
is there any questions, anybody? Questions?
Joe, do you have any
questions?
comments? Kathy, any
Yeah.
question, comments, concern? Damian, any questions, comments, concern? You brought treats, right?
Well, I would have, but I was too irritated, so I didn't.
Don't be irritated.
Does that mean you ate them before you got here? Does that mean you ate them?
No, I haven't even ate yet.
Oh, okay.
do we need?
That's why your irritated.
Oh, no, I
Hangry
still-
people.
It's called hungry. Hungry.
I mean, I can get hangry and then.
But yeah,
still
if anybody
fall
wants to come
back.
downstairs and sit next to us all day long, please do.
All right.
I'll put you to work.
I think
Oh, Chris is
I got you,
volunteering.
And I say something.
Get called on. What, Brian, I will tell you, this was
Oh,
helpful.
wait a minute, what did you tell me earlier?
I wasn't gonna say.
You weren't gonna say.
I'm offering some assistance.
I see, okay.
This is helpful, because this, when I come from a
It's
hospital
really
setting,
pronounced. Access.
and the structure of a
So
hospital is so
when
different,
I
and everybody
pay-
speaks a similar
See
language.
like this bell
But when
right
you
here?
come to the government,
I have
it's,
one
as you know,
statement
you're in
that
the
says
military.
this, but
It's
then
so
I have
different. But
some
even
more
in the
that write,
military,
do you,
you're kind
do
of
we wanna
protected.
just
So when
take
you're
all
talking
of
to
these
people
into
that
one
aren't in
lump
our
sum?
lanes, it's different for them. Like,
Because
his
this-
might be here
So we
talking about
can't
something.
be
Bart might be
directly
talking
off
about
of a
something.
statement,
And
we
we
No,
can
no, no,
attach
here's
all
the
of the
invoice.
invoices,
Yes.
and we can pay off the statement if
So,
you
it
attach
was
all the
hard.
Yeah,
invoices.
because see this
That
statement
first
right
year,
here, there's
you come from a
about
facility
3 grand that needs to be added because
the
they're,
county.
they're,
I struggle
these
with
all
that, and I
are
still
back here. I
struggle
think
with
it's
that.
Okay,
just
these just the first year.
these
I
two
got
are
80 on this
not
because I got-
added to this.
These
but
guys
it's
don't
not.
have
So
to
maybe
help.
these just came in.
So. and
So
then you have
towards
these-
the end of the
and
week.
Joe's on
You
my
can
board
cross
also,
it out and
so
just
it gets
change the
clumped up.
total, but.
Hey, I
should
missed
have
part of
all
that.
the
Could you start
information.
over?
All right, I just wanted to.
All
make
right,
sure.
I
This
think
is
we're
what
done.
we do it
Can
for.
we end Zoom now?
No way.
I'm just saying,
All right.
sometimes we have more information.